051 plus MELLY equals Gravedigger. MELLY was killing people, bro, for a fact. 051 MELLY was killing people, bro. It hit different.
Well, I mean, you really recently had a really bad loss.
Yeah.
OTF Chino. But where were you at when you found out about the news?
Studio.
And you know, how did you feel at that moment?
Shit, I was sick. Like when stuff like that type stuff happen, bro, it hit you so hard, you be confused, really. Like, hell no, that ain't real. You know what I'm saying?
Just let me a piece.
Yeah, Chino burger. That's what they said. Get the f*** out.
Every famous gangbanger from Chicago that has amassed notoriety on the internet has mainly done so through their music blowing up, from Lil Durk, Chief Keef to FBG Duck. But deep in the gang underworld of Chicago, there was one name that struck fear in Lil Durk's heart: 051 MELLY. Born Williams Williams on November 19, 1991, and not known for making diss songs aimed at ops, MELLY was known for running up on BDs, hunting them down, and tweeting about the moments after doing the hit, which sounds familiar to what a shooter out in O-Block used to do before hitting it big in the rap game. Now, to understand how this nonchalant Mickey Cobra shooter rose to prominence, allow me to take you through the turbulent life of Williams Williams, through all his traumatic incidents, and how Williams backdoored DeAndre Smith, a gang member from the Quiet Money set who had a bounty on his head, so he'd used the bounty reward to bond his brother Wu out of jail. Williams Williams grew up on the south side of Chicago, raised by his mother, Angie B. Williams, and his stepfather, Jerome Fendo Goldman, a notorious black disciple enforcer who ruled over the Randolph Towers alongside Marvel Thompson as their drug enterprise, holding approximately $300,000 per day. But on January 1994, when MELLY was only 2 years of age, his stepfather was charged with 4 counts of murder and armed robbery. And as soon as his stepfather was convicted for his crimes and couldn't be around to support his family, MELLY's mother moved him and 2 of his siblings to 59th and Calamount. This is 600's territory, and as MELLY grew older, he clicked up with the Young Money set from 51st and Cottage Grove. And while living in 600 territory while murdering 600 gang members would prove costly for MELLY, as he was a frequent target for the BDs looking to retaliate. And after cultivating a friendship with the Mickey Crobers from Cottage Grove, in January 2008, 18-year-old 051 Young Money gang member and basketball player Isaiah Walker, or better known as Zeko, was confronted by a THF 46 gang member named Aki outside a McDonald's parking lot. An argument would ensue, and not long after, guns were pulled out and Aki fired multiple shots, hitting Zeko several times before fleeing the scene westbound on Cottage Grove. As soon as the news of Zeko's passing came to light, THF 46 gang members would take to the internet and diss Zeko.
Oh, f Young Money to Zeko. That shit was Zeko. Shawty, man. Shawty gone. Folks got him up out of there, man.
And it wouldn't stop there, because Rondo number 9 would pile on the disrespect on Zeko's name alongside Boss Trail, D-Rose, and G Herbo by dropping the Young Money diss titled Zeko Pack.
Zeko, it's what I'm smoking on. Hey, we mean big. Zeko, it's what I'm smoking on.
On November 11th, 2011, 051 Young Money gang member T-Streetz was sitting in his car when THF shooter Twiller walked up and unloaded multiple shots towards T-Streetz, leaving him deceased. It was the murder of T-Streetz on that godforsaken November night that would start a ripple effect that would end up claiming the lives of various young men between the Trigger Happy family and 051 Young Money. And while Young Money members like 051 Driller and Loose Screw Mills mourned the loss of T-Streetz, the BDs were quick to taunt 051 over T-Streetz passing, including this ominous line of King Von's song alongside 5-Year Foreign, where he boldly stated that anybody who tried initiating peace talks in regards to the bloodshed in the streets would end up like T-Streetz.
Ain't been in school, ain't learn about a pastry. He tried to pastry and end up like T-Streetz.
And whether THF 46 knew it or not, the killing of T-Streetz would give rise to a young man who was thirsty to avenge his friend. And on February 2012, get back for the slaying of T-Streetz would come in the form of Shaq from 600, who left a house party on 59th and Calamount to take a piss in the alleyway, the same street 051 MELLY would be arrested on in the future. So, MELLY would allegedly walk up to Shaq, pull out his firearm, and unload multiple shots at Shaq, hitting his back and right shoulder, then fleeing the scene. When the Chicago PD arrived, they were greeted by a gruesome scene of Shaq on the ground facing down and another woman who had been hit by gunfire. They were both transported to the Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where the woman fortunately survived, but Shaq wasn't as lucky, as 2 hours later he would succumb to his injuries. And as news of the tragic incident would spread around Chicago, 051 MELLY would take to Twitter, boasting about the body he had caught, tweeting how Shaq is now a brain-dead BD and how he asked MELLY to piss first before shooting him. It wouldn't be long before the tables would be turned again and Young Money would be grieving a devastating loss all over again. As on Friday, June the 22nd, 2012, at around 8:39 p.m., 14-year-old affiliate of 051 Young Money, Antonio Davis, nicknamed Fathead, was working on the 7000 block of South Union Avenue when a 1997 Dodge with 4 Lamron members parked beside him, and C-Day allegedly jumped out of the car and fired several shots at Fathead, striking his temple twice, his lower back and right thigh, jumping back into the Dodge and fleeing the scene. The Chicago PD and fire department would rush to the scene and transport Antonio Davis to the hospital, but he would unfortunately succumb to his injuries at 12:50 a.m. And after this devastating loss of Antonio Davis came to light, it was about time for all the PDs to get into the studio and air out all the disrespect towards Fathead and the Young Money crew. From Rondo No. 9 on Taliban, Chief Keef on War, E-Day on War, 600 Breezy on Don't Get Smoked. And while Antonio's mother had to be on Twitter trying to plead with LA Capone to stop dissing her son, the Chicago PD had charged then 17-year-old Courtney Ellie, aka C-Day, with the Fathead, but due to the witnesses being reluctant to testify in open court, the charges against C-Day were dropped. And after the Chicago PD exonerated C-Day of all his charges in relation to the murder of Fathead, 051 Young Money were looking for any opening whatsoever to possibly catch C-Day lurking, but that wasn't the case. This is towards the 051 set would be sent from C-Day himself, disrespecting fallen 051 members like Zeko and Fathead, 600 members ordering a Fathead sandwich at a chicken shop.
What you want that face? You want that? Oh, yeah, Fathead sandwiches, guys. Oh, damn.
And FBG Duck himself disrespectfully taunting 051. But while everybody was having their fun on social media, it wouldn't be long before the Black Disciples would suffer one of the biggest tragedies in the Chicago drill era, because on September the 27th, 17-year-old drill sensation Leonard Anderson, known by his stage name LA Capone, was in the studio recording music on the South Stony Avenue of 7040.
It is though. Just record. This is gonna be a hit song, man. You recording this shit? Get this shit camera, man.
In the studio with him is 757 Hard Rock, a well-known audio engineer around the city, but whether LA Capone knew Hard Rock had relations to the 051 Young Money set or not is a mystery, because here he is in a Lil Mark music video back in 2013. So, on that infamous September night, while LA Capone was in the studio with Hard Rock, Lil Meek, Miko, Rockhead, 051 gang members are all in a silver Taurus on 51st and Per. While sitting in the car, 051 gang member Rockhead receives a call from 757 Hard Rock, who's still in the studio with LA Capone, and informs them that LA is in the studio laying down vocals to an apparent diss track aimed at Rockhead and the 051 gang at large. A brief argument would ensue amongst the gang members as they deliberated on whether to go to the studio and kill LA or not, but once Rockhead had mentioned the fact that 600 gang members had killed their fellow gang member and close friend Fathead, firearms were pulled out and the gang drove to a gas station on 61st and Stony Island, where they met another feared 051 shooter, Armando Fitch, or better yet, 051 Big A, not to be confused with O Block Savage, Big A, who went by the same name.
You want to know who people make K.I. sound like? Big A. And I ain't talking about Big A from O Block. I'm talking about the dyke Big A from Young Money. Like that little dyke, like she was trying to do some shit. You feel me? That's why when she got caught, motherfucker did her like they did her.
Once they got to the gas station, Rockhead gets into the car with Big A, whose mission was to trail the car Miko and Lil Mick were in. That way, they would obstruct the policeman's view of the car involved in the murder if the need arose. They would then park in an alleyway and wait 20 to 30 minutes for LA Capone to leave the studio. And once he walked out that door, Lil Mick would pull out his firearm and unload 2 to 3 shots at LA Capone, get back into the vehicle, and they would all flee the scene towards Washington Park, where Lil Rock would depart from the crew.
They told his immediate family to step closer to where they was at. You know what I'm saying? So I just stood up and I'm like, they say something bad, I'ma know, because I'm about to see the reactions. And so it's like, as soon as they open their mouth, it was like instant tears, hollering, all this and that. And I just knew, I'm like, damn, it's over.
And while the BDs were mourning the loss of their rap superstar in LA Capone, the Mickey Cobras from Cottage Grove would take this opportunity to diss the BDs the same way they did when Fathead had passed. 051 Melly would take to Twitter and let it be known that the of LA Capone was due to him claiming responsibility for Fathead's passing, and LA Capone's slayer Lil Mac would disrespectfully taunt 600, asking them what they would rename the set following LA's slaying. And after the passing of LA Capone in the spring of 2014, back-to-back bodies would drop from both sides because on March the 25th, 2014, 051 Young Money rapper Lil Mark would drop No Competition, a bold response to Lil Durk's track Competition with Lil Reese, where Lil Mark takes shots at deceased 300 members, including Wick City's OD Perry, 600's D-Thang, not to be confused with Lil Durk's brother D-Thang from Dog Pound, O-Block's J Money, and stating that he's been drilling for 10 years. Nonetheless, Lil Mark would end the song off by dubbing himself as 300K, a gesture Lil Durk had warned against on This Ain't What You Want. And he'd have an ominous back and forth with Lil Reese.
What y'all on? Alright. That AO shit. Uh-huh. What up? Out here. I'm fast, boy. I been out here. I stay out here, boy.
And literally 3 days after Lil Mark dropped No Competition, on March the 28th, 3 days before his 21st birthday, Lil Mark was standing at a bus stop on East 51st Street where a vehicle would pull up, a man jumps out and unloads multiple shots, hitting Lil Mark's head and flees the scene.
Lil Mark talking to Lil Reese on FaceTime, and then the clip ends up being on the diss video. But now let's just address the obvious. You can't be beefing in Chicago and have a bus pass. You gotta have a gang carpool or something. You gotta have a courtesy bulletproof gang whip.
And minutes after the hit, 300 affiliates like THF Twiller, D-Rose, and King Von would drive to the scene, seemingly mocking Lil Mark's passing and using this moment to taunt the wise over on 051.
It's a took off 51st.
Body down.
Oh, not those things.
Body down. 51st. Gang.
And days later, Def Jam signee Lil Durk would make his way to Lil Mark's crime scene to do some more taunting of his own.
Bus stop, man. Hey, this bus stop right here, though. This a real famous place, yeah. This a real famous place, B. Hey, this bus stop, this a real famous place, B. I ain't gonna lie to you.
On the 31st of May 2013, a mere 2 days after signing a lucrative recording deal in an effort to stay off the streets and focus on music.
Man, just working. I'm in the studio 24/7, you hear me?
Yeah.
Man, stay out these streets, man. Much rough out here, you hear me? You get caught lagging, it's all bad for you, you know?
OTF Nuski was sitting in his car on the 700 block of East 87th Street when a man walks up on him, unloads 6 shots at Nuski, and then flees the scene, with Durk arriving at the scene minutes later, getting a chance to see the gruesome aftermath where Nuski's mother would put the blame of her son's passing on Lil Durk.
Nuski, RP Pat.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me about your right hand.
Blood cousin. Chicago.
Yeah. I ain't know what to say. I know he was there when they put out the tag. That shit was a shame. He did right in front of me. Auntie say I'm a snag.
And as OTF members mourned the passing of Nuski, it was the perfect time for Mubu Krump and the 051 Young Money set to inflict more pain towards Durk by dissing Nuski.
Historic events. Huh, wish you would play with me, boy. I look like Nuski. He ran into this though. He ran into the children's place like a big pokes now. Goof. What do I look like Nuski? What you talking about?
Almost a year after Nuski's tragic passing in Chicago, paramedics would rush to a restaurant on South Stony Island at 1:35 a.m. to respond to of Lil Durk's manager, OTF Chino. This comes hours after he was in the company of Chicago Bulls center at the time, Joakim Noah, discussing their anti-violence initiative, Rock Your Drop, which planned on combating the rising gang amongst young men in Chicago. And now all that had to be put aside to begin preparations for his funeral.
Hours after meeting with Chicago Bulls basketball player Joakim Noah to talk about a anti-initiative. Now, listen, man, because apparently he went to go get some food and he went to the south side of Chirac with his girlfriend, and I'm thinking, well, what? The south side of Chirac? Listen, you don't go there to get food. That's where niggas don't pack their lunches, niggas smoke on packs for lunch.
Where were you at when you found out about the news?
Studio.
And how did you feel at that moment?
Yeah, I was sick. Like when stuff like that type stuff happen, bro, it hit you so hard you be confused, really. Like, hell no, ain't real. You know what I'm saying?
051 MELLY would tweet minutes after the hit, claiming it was get back for Lil Mark's passing the previous year, and it was just about time for Krump to grab his phone, hit record, and start dissing OTF Chino, hoping to get under Durk's skin.
I just grabbed all of my food. Y'all got that order for Nuski? Chino burger. Chino burger. Yeah. Y'all got it? We OTFK all the way in Paris. I'm trying to let my know.
Chino, what I'm sipping.
You sipping on Chino? Hey, that's crazy.
Hell
you
yeah.
Sipping Chino, I'm sipping Nuski. That's crazy.
Nuski in my cup.
For real on full still.
On May the 15th, 2015, almost 2 months following the tragic passing of Lil Durk's manager, OTF Chino, on the 8400 block of South Stony Island, 051 MELLY and 051 Aero were standing in front of a house on 60th and LaSalle Street, downtown Englewood, when a vehicle drives through and fires a barrage of shots towards MELLY and his entourage. The triggerman was believed to be 15-year-old THF 46 gang member THF Raheem, FBG cousin's blood brother and stepson to THF head honcho THF BayZoo, who had relations to Raheem's mother. 051 MELLY had a bullet graze to the head and one family lodged into his leg, while 051 Aero was hit in his shoulder. While paramedics and investigators rushed to the scene to aid the wounded men, this photo of a badly wounded Aero would be captured. A couple of days following this incident, MELLY and Aero would take to social media to remind the ops that they may have suffered a couple of wounds, but they were still very much alive and in pursuit for get back. MELLY would be seen rolling around the city in crutches, and while THF 46 might still have been on a high after hitting two high-ranking 051 Young Money members, on May the 24th, 2 weeks after the incident on 60th and LaSalle Street, THF Raheem and a group of 15-year-old boys were leaving the Golden Fish and Chicken restaurant on 45th and Cottage Grove Avenue when 4 to 5 shots were fired from a silver sedan, with Raheem being hit multiple times in his back. He would run into an alleyway, collapse, and sadly pass away. Following THF Raheem's passing, condolences would be poured out from numerous BDs, and THF BayZoo himself would post this heartfelt caption on Instagram after being released from jail. He would express his disappointment in his inability to be in the streets to support and guide his stepson while he was incarcerated. Raheem's mother would express her grief on national television.
Man, I gotta go bury my son. You gotta put me in the ground and I'll never see him again. That's gonna be so hard.
And Raheem's blood cousin FBG Duck would allege THF 46 gang members that he would be at his cousin's funeral regardless of the ongoing war in the streets of Chicago between the Black Disciples and the Gangster Disciples. And while everybody was still grieving, back on 51st and Cottage Grove, the Young Money set would continue piling on the disrespect towards THF 46, as MELLY would tweet at BayZoo and his entourage to keep their heads up, and they should have known that Raheem's day was coming.
Show your face. Show your face. Show your face. Y'all scared of me. You wanna know why y'all don't show y'all face? Cause you know if you show your face, you're gonna get dealt with, right?
Well, I'm gonna read you a bedtime story and tuck you in. Huh? You want me to read you a bedtime story and tuck you in? Yeah. Tell you about this. He walked down this dark alley. He ain't make it to the other end of the alley. I was just reading the comments, bro.
2 years following the passing of THF Raheem, while bodies were still dropping in the streets of Chicago, gang members were going in and out of the prison system, and LA Capone slayers 757 Hard Knock, Lil Meek, and Rockhead were apprehended as those responsible for LA Capone's slaying. 051 MELLY would find himself running low on money to bond his brother Wu out of jail. So, MELLY and Tierra Smothers to lure DeAndre Smith, a lethal triggerman from Pocket Town known as Lord Dre, to an alleyway on 51st and Drexel, take him out and collect the bounty that was on his head. What's even more ironic is that a witness gave information to the Chicago PD at around the same time that Lord Dre and MELLY both had bounties on their heads from rival gang members who wanted them slumped 6 feet under. A couple of calls were made, and MELLY would convince Lord Dre to participate in a robbery with him, and Lord Dre would agree. When they arrived on 51st and Drexel, both men would exit the sedan, disappear into a gangway, and multiple shots would be fired towards Lord Dre, and MELLY would run back towards the sedan, and Tierra would flee the scene. MELLY would then make a call to his brother Wu and let him know that he had enough money to bond him out, and Wu would walk out the correction center the next day. A man who had relations with Tierra would let the police know Tierra and MELLY's involvement in Lord Dre's demise after the guilt of Tierra's role in this heinous crime was too much to bear. They would both be charged with first-degree murder, but due to the lack of conclusive evidence and no witnesses willing to testify, they would both walk free. But on the night of September the 3rd, 2019, while attending a party on 63rd and St. Lawrence, Taekwondo World gang member Nate would walk towards MELLY and unload multiple shots towards him, where he'd pass away at the scene. Nate would be arrested 2 days later, but regardless of the Chicago PD being in possession of the weapon used, Nate wouldn't be charged for the slaying of MELLY due to their inability to meet the burden of proof.